Hello lovely people, welcome back to the kitchen. We're going to make something. I was just hesitating fractionally then because the freezer motor has gone quiet, so we've got to get quick sticks. It'll be quiet for about 15 minutes, then it'll kick back in, hopefully while the soup's bubbling, and then it'll go quiet again. So let's crack on. I am doing another homemade versus shop recipe today. In other words, what does it cost? I'm doing a like for like. So I'm doing leek and potato soup today, a really basic version. I'll talk at the end about things I do to tweak it to make it even more gorgeous. But yeah, lovely leek and potato soup. Now, just to say as well, with this, I'm going to try and do more of these videos where I'm actually doing really thorough costing for you all. It takes a little bit more time, obviously, because of that, because I've got to go schlepping around, looking at prices, making notes of things. But yeah, I'm planning to do that because I think it's really helpful for folk. And today it's a soup, because soup is really easy to show that like for like difference. I am going to do it with some main meals as well, though. It's just that that's going to be a bit trickier because a lot of the things I eat as a main meal you're not going to find in the shops because I cook from home. But I'll still cost them out for you anyway. So today, once again, I've done costings based on all shop bought ingredients. Everything has been bought. So even if you don't have a garden, this is still A, a doable recipe, and B, well, I hope I'll amaze you at the end with the numbers. Right, is there anything I wanted to say before we get stuck in? I'm just looking at my notes for today. No. So let's start, as always. Just while I'm sitting, I'm just going to do the ingredients. Just a quick word about this stock again. This is a really small pot, 150 grams. The smaller the pot, the more expensive it is in the long term, because when you buy the bigger pots, it's cheaper to buy in bulk. That's what I was trying to say. I got this because they didn't have larger ones when I was there, but there's a really large version of this that comes in. It's almost like one of those like big old school tubs of ice cream, really big. I think it's probably 1,000 grams a kilo. Thank you, Vivi. And the great thing with that, of course, is, and I may do that next time, Paul was reminding me of this, of course you can freeze it. So you can put, you can decant a little bit of that out into a jar to be using over the next couple of weeks. Depends how often you use it. If you're using it every night, you might do that by the week. You might do it by the month, but then put the rest in the freezer if you've got freezer space. And now that I've gone down from 3 freezers to just 1, I don't have the space. And for anyone who's new to the channel, because I know there's quite a few new people recently, yes, I used to have 3 freezers in here, and they would all be, by the end of September, they would be absolutely chock full of all my homegrown produce. So no freezer meals in there, no Linda McCartney sausages, nothing like that, just all homegrown produce, the raw ingredients for cooking with. However, because I'm selling the flat, I wanted to make the kitchen look better. I've reduced down to 1, so I don't have space to freeze. But if you've got freezer space, certainly think about getting the big pot, decanting a bit out for your day-to-day use and keeping the rest in the freezer. Right, let's check out these ridiculously simple, humble ingredients. Well, it really couldn't be more simple, could it? Stock we've had an introduction to already. I might make up about 1.25 litre, just a little over 1 litre. Couple of spuds, couple of leeks, onion, and a bit of butter. Now, the other thing with my recipes is I don't tend to weigh and measure stuff. I think it's just the habit of when you're grabbing things from the garden. If I dig up a really big potato, I don't need to weigh it. I think, well, that's a really big potato. I'm going to need a couple of leeks to go with it. And if the leeks come up a bit skinny, I might think, well, I'll have 3 leeks or 4 leeks. However, for for those who prefer weights, roughly speaking, I've got half a kilo of leeks, 500 grams, so let's do grams. So I've got 500 grams of leeks, about 500 grams of potatoes, so like for like, 1 onion. The butter, that's about, it's a bit less actually, I haven't weighed it. It's less than 1/5 of a pack, and 1/5 of a pack would be 50 grams, so it might be 35 grams or so. Now, the other thing, so we've got some really, really humble ingredients here, and relatively cheap to buy in the shops, apart from the butter. Oh, by the way, for those who haven't seen it before, yes, that is a little dish with a Thelwell pony on it. The butter is a bit of a luxury. I personally think that leeks are at their best when they're sautéed in butter. It just seems to do something extra for the flavour. However, I realise some of you are on a really, really, really tight budget, so don't worry about buying butter because it is expensive. Instead, use a bit of oil and a bit of water. Let me explain. It's called steam frying. So in the bottom of your pan, a slug of oil, maybe the equivalent of a couple of tablespoons full, about the same of water, maybe a little bit more water, just enough to give you sort of like a couple of, maybe 1/2 centimetres depth in the bottom of the pan. Get that hot, and we're going to chop the leeks and chop the onion and chuck them in. I'm going to talk about the recipe in a second, but you're basically going to saute your leeks and your onion off in that little bit. Now, because you've added the water as well, pop the lid on. Keep a close eye. I use cast iron pans and they don't tend to burn or catch, but if you're using stainless steel, keep a bit of an eye on it. What you got with that combination of a bit of oil and water, the oil is going to help with the flavour, and it's going to bring out some of the leek flavour. That sautéing will bring out the sweetness and the volatile compounds, that stuff that makes them smell. It'll bring all that out, that flavour out. So you'll still get that little bit of help with the flavour with the oil. But the effect of the water and putting the lid on is you're going to create steam in there, and that's going to have the effect of helping to soften them down, which is all I'm going to do in the butter, but the steam will help to soften. So it's a useful thing to do if you're really, really broke. And I mean, in the past, I've done this recipe that way. And in the past, I've done this recipe and not even used oil, literally just water, bit of water in the bottom to steam to get them going before I add everything else. Okay, so it's very simple. I'm going to chop the leeks and the onion, saute for about 10 minutes. Whilst they're sautéing, get my potatoes chopped, make myself a bit over 1 litre of stock. When these are nice and soft, and you'll smell all that gorgeous smell coming out, I will chuck in the potatoes and the stock and let it simmer for up to about 20 minutes till the spuds are soft. But again, because I'm using the cast iron pan, I'll let it simmer for about 15 minutes, then I'm going to turn the heat off, lid on, heat off, and it can continue. That's it, and then we'll talk about blending when we come to it. But so that's the recipe. Before I do that, I'm just going to prepare my leeks, and I know that many of you will know this, but I'm just going to share it for those who don't. So let's shufty along to the tap for leek cleaning. What I want to say, first and foremost, is I don't want to patronise anybody about cooking. I know a lot of you are really experienced cooks, you've been making soup all your life, etc. And this is just like, oh, let's see what Vivi's up to, let's get an idea, and you're more interested in the maths. However, I know there are people out there who, they're just not used to home cooking. So yeah, some folk don't know. That's why I'm going to share. So you get your leek from the shop. You can see in there, can't you? There's oh, these are really dried out. You can see there's a bit of mud. That's the thing with leeks. The thing with these where they've been chopped already. This has gone really dry and tough. What a shame. I'm going to chop it out. I'm not going to chop it though. I'm going to chop that because I don't want that toughness in my soup. But, and this is another freezer thing to do. Get a pot that you can open and close where the lid is easy to come on and off. Put your scraps in there in the freezer, and then when you've got enough scraps, you can chuck them in a pot, boil them up a bit to make your own stock. So let's put that over there for a minute. So yeah, I really don't like trimming tops of leeks because all of it is good for us. In fact, the dark green is really good for us, but it's dried out, it's gnarly, it's horrible. Now, just cut the tiniest bit of where the root was, and then my knife needs sharpening, and I don't do this for camera. I'm just going to slice it all the way down the middle. And like I said, I haven't quite got the root off. This is purely for our friends who have maybe never cooked with a fresh leek before. So you see, we come back here, we see, oh look, it's muddy. So very simply, there should be considerably less mud down near the root. Yeah. Let me get the stringy bits off. To clean it, just very simply under the tap, running my fingers over the surface of the leaves. So you hear me above the splash of the water. There we go. And that, like I say, for folk who've not cooked with fresh leeks before, that's how to clean. Oh, it's splashing me. That's how to clean your leeks. So a lengthwise slit, and then the head of the leek facing down under the tap. Just run off all those bits of mud. mud, glorious mud. Oh, I better not sing to get copyright infringement. Actually, this one's not too bad. Put it this way, homegrown leeks are a lot muddier. Right, so all I'm going to do now is just, that knife really needs sharpening, let me move it. I'm just going to chop them fairly finely, as in about 1/2 centimetre wide. Get this lot chopped, get the onion chopped, get them sautéing down for 10 minutes. Whilst that's happening, chop the spud, boil a kettle to make some stock, whack it all together. The freezer motor has just kicked in again, perfect timing, so I'm going to leave this bit here and we'll rejoin when it's blending time and serving time, and then we'll do some hopefully amazing maths. Yay! See you in a mo. Oh, yummo. I'm starting to salivate. That is a gorgeous, some bits. You can tell from the sound that it's thick and creamy. No cream in it. I mean, look, if you want to add cream, please feel free, but this is about frugal cooking when there's not a whole lot of spare cash to go around. Now look, I've blended this quite hard. I've blended the whole lot, but if you prefer some chunks of the veggie as you're eating, what I would suggest is maybe blend half of it, really thoroughly, add it back in, stir it all up. Then you'll get this kind of creaminess. This creaminess is because we've smashed the potato and all that potato starch is thickening. So let's have a sit. I'm going to talk numbers, but before I even talk about numbers, I'm going to talk about some additions and some freezer facts, etc, etc. So let's have a sit down, let's have a bowl. Oh, I'm hungry, yay. Oh, it's so good. Thick, creamy gorgeousness. This is my second bowl. Oh, naughty. It's so good. I'm having a second bowl because that first bowl I was waiting for the freezer to shut up before I can start filming again. It's gorgeous. Now, because people often make mention of it, no, I didn't add any salt or pepper during the cooking. There's a little bit of salt and pepper in the stock. If I just put leek and potato soup in my hair, there is a little bit in the stock. I just don't add salt as a rule, and I don't miss it. There's enough in the vegetables. However, it's personal taste, isn't it? So when you're making it, if you like salt and pepper in your food, add it. Now, couple of things just before I go into the maths. I've done the maths for you, don't worry, maththobics. This soup, it freezes really well. I've never had an issue with freezing it, which makes me think about, because we're coming on to costings now, it's one of those veg that sometimes during the winter it will be on offer, there may be a glut, whatever it is, but I'm thinking especially of places like Lidl and Aldi. They have their pick of 5 or pick of 6, whatever it is, on a super low offer each week. If you see them on offer, grab even more. Just make up vats and vats of the stuff. It's such an easy soup to make, and it's a relatively cheap soup to make anyway. So if it's on offer, make it even cheaper and chuck it in the freezer. I've had occasions when I've had, I don't know, 24, 25 portions of it in the freezer, and it freezes perfectly fine. I mean, I would eat, that would be one portion a week for about 6 months. I don't think I've ever had it in the freezer longer than 6 months because I eat it, but it freezes really well. So the great thing about that, one, you can make the most of any leeks during the winter if they're on offer, if there's been a glut, but also later in the spring, we can add things to it. Oh, now I've already done, I'll add the card on to the end of this video. I've already done a leek and potato recipe, but it's with fennel, and I love it with fennel. It's been, for me, fennel is one of those hit and miss veg in terms of growing it in the garden. I have some years I've grown fantastic fennel, and other years where they're scrawny little things and they bolt. So I'll tag that on the end here. But as we go into May, and this makes a lovely early spring soup, because we still occasionally might get a chilly evening in the spring, you might fancy some soup. The first of our garden peas are coming, and oh, one of my favourite veg of all time, broad beans. Now, I've got no idea how much broad beans cost in the shop. I've never bought them in a shop, don't see too much of them. But a handful of either peas or broad beans or both added to a bowl of this, absolutely gorgeous. I've still got some broad beans from my harvest last year. I think I've got about the equivalent of 4 tins worth in the freezer. So one of these portions will certainly have broad beans added. Other portions, well, they may just have some peas added because I bought some more frozen peas. I'm addicted now. So yeah, you can add all sorts to it. I know folk might say, oh, what about the protein? Well, you can add beans. But the fact is, we don't have to have masses of protein in every single meal we eat. We can spread our protein through the day. So if I know I'm going to have a protein-rich evening meal, I can have something, you know, a light soup, vegetable soup in the middle of the day that maybe has very little protein. You know, you think about it, you know, my sister, she's a meat eater. She'd quite happily have tomato soup for lunch and not think, oh, there's no protein. So don't worry too much about that. But if you want to, chuck some beans, peas, whatever you fancy in it. But as it is on its own, it's blooming gorgeous. Costs. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to say, because this kind of comes out of that thing of gluts and, you know, when veg are at their cheapest, you know, it should make sense that when a vegetable is in season, that's when it's the cheapest to buy. If you are lucky enough to have a friend who is a gardener, a vegetable gardener, and they offer you some courgettes perhaps or some leeks because they have a glut, don't be proud, don't be stubborn, say, oh my goodness, thank you, yes please, and take them. I mean, I remember when I was first at the allotment, people would offer me courgettes or whatever, and I'd say, oh, but I've got nothing to trade with you, I've got nothing to give you. And they'd say, I don't want anything, but will you please just take these vegetables? Because the thing, all gardeners, certainly at my experience, all gardeners hate the thought of veg going to waste. All that time and effort put into nurturing a plant to fruition, and then suddenly, oh, you've got all these courgettes or leeks or whatever it is. The thought of them either rotting on the plant or rotting in the ground or rotting in the compost bin, it's a heartbreaker for gardeners. So yeah, if a friend who is a gardener ever offers you something, be very gracious and say, thank you, that's really kind of you, thank you. If you've got something to swap back, all well and good. But things like courgettes and leeks, when there's a glut, just adding a spud, mash them together, suddenly you've got a really lovely soup. And I know, for instance, because I saw my friend Gary in the street the other day, and he's got about, what did he say? 40 feet in terms of rows of carrots still left in the ground. And he wants to prepare that bed for this year's new crop. And he said, please will you take some carrots? And I said, you don't have to ask twice, because mine failed again. So yeah, say thank you and take them with good grace. Right, money matters. That's what we're all here for, isn't it? So talking of leeks in particular, I did have a look to see, you know, in various different shops and supermarkets. I haven't done really much of a price comparison for the actual raw ingredients, more the actual made up soup. But leeks seem to be about £1.50 for a half kilo. Old money, that's about £1, isn't it, for my American friends? So yeah, about £1.50 for half a kilo. I got mine from Lidl, of course, good old Lidl. So mine were £1.19 for half a kilo. You see, I also got some more peas. They are, what were they, 99p, so worth it. So £1.19 for leeks. Then I went, actually, surprisingly, Sainsbury's for the potatoes. They were 70p for a bag of 4. So those 2 we started with today were 2 of 4. They were labelled baking potatoes. So that must have been about a kilo in total, because I used about 500 grams. So yeah, 70p. The equivalent in Lidl would have been, it would be more like £1, 90p to £1, in money, not weight. So for once, it was cheaper to go elsewhere. And I appreciate folk don't always have time to go to all the different supermarkets. That's why I'm doing the legwork for you. In general, Lidl are the go-to for the cheapest. So what did this soup cost in total? I've written a thick black pen so you can all read it and I can see through the back. So I can't read backwards. Leeks, £1.19. Potatoes, 35p. Onion, 12p. Butter, I think I used a bit less in this, but let's call it 30p. Stock, 15p. So in total it was £2.11. And that's made me 2 litres of soup, of which I've already scoffed a load. So that's the equivalent of about 5 tins. So when I'm talking tins, I've just grabbed this one out of the cupboard. You'll recognise it from the tomato soup video. This is Sainsbury's own brand tomato soup. So a tin of soup. Debate about serving sizes. This says it serves 2. I don't think that's enough. Maybe more like 3/4 of a can, but for me, I want a whole can. So all these prices I'm going to talk about now, I've priced for the equivalent of buying a tin. So, right, let's get down to it. Let's cover things up so we don't cheat and look in advance. I need some paper. Oh, darn, I didn't think this bit through. Oh, got paper stuck down here. Oh. just pulled a muscle. Something went funny. Right. So once again, I've gone out and about and compared prices. This time though, I don't know why I did it with the tomato soup. I haven't bought any of the tins of this product. What's the point? I don't want to buy tin stuff. I mean, I don't want to buy shop stuff. I'll make my own, thank you very much. So once again, Heinz is right at the top of the list. This is a tinned soup. It's a branded soup. It's £1.85 for a tin. Now the fresh soups, those that are in the chiller cabinets, they come in various sizes between 560 mils and 600 mils. So I've extrapolated the number to give the equivalent of a tin. So we know that we're exactly comparing like with like. This is all for 400 mils. So fresh in the chiller cabinet, a branded variety. In this case, it was Covent Garden soups. And I like their soups. They feel like they're really, really packed with a lot of ingredients. So I think they're good value, but on the other hand, let's make our own. So they were £1.53. The supermarket's own label, so a non-branded variety, £1.26. Now, let's go down to the supermarket's own label so we're back to this kind of supermarket's own labelling rather than branded. We're straight away down to 90p. We've halved the price of that branded product up there. It's all well and good. Can we go a bit cheaper? So of the budget supermarkets, Aldi, Lidl, I don't have an Aldi near me, so I had to check this one online. But for the same tin at Aldi, 62p. We're coming down. The next one on the list is mine that I've just made with all shop bought ingredients. So for those of you without a garden, the cheapest you can buy ready-made is going to be 62 pence for a tin. If you make it yourself, and there were no offers on any of the veg in this one. So imagine again, if leeks are on offer, they were £1.19 this time. What if they're on offer for 79 pence? Grab 2 packets. But our own homemade version, 42 pence. Oh, sorry, I haven't given you a breakdown. So just hold that in your mind for a second. Oh yeah, I did do the breakdown. What am I talking about? I've just done it, haven't I? 42 pence. Can we get it cheaper? What if we've grown our own leeks? Or what if we've got a buddy who's got an allotment and they've got some spare leeks? What would it have cost if we didn't have to buy the leeks? And this has been me in the past with my allotment. 18 pence. 18 pence if you grow your own leeks. What about if you grow your own leeks and your own potatoes and your own onions? 9 pence. Now 9 pence, and I'm going to tell you now about an uber frugal, almost free. 9 pence, we're basically covering there the cost of the butter and the stock. So if you made your own stock from veg scrap, like I was saying about the tops of the leeks, I wish they'd leave more green on the leeks because it's the best bit actually. But we'll save it in the freezer and we'll use it to make stock. So if we make our own stock, that comes down to 6p. And if we don't use butter, I think it's worth it. I do think it's worth it. 6 pence worth of butter for a portion of soup. But if you can't, then that splash of oil and water could bring it down. But even less than that, and something I have done in the past when times have been really, really, really tight, I don't use stock at all. I've just used boiling water. If I've already got, a bit of pepper, maybe some herbs in the house, add them. If I've got some veg scraps, use those to make a stock, but essentially just using water because the onions and leeks, they're so flavoursome anyway. And then for sautéing them right at the beginning of the recipe, just steam fry them. So 0 cost because it's just my own homegrown veg. Now look, I think it's worth putting the butter in. I think it's a lovely addition, that taste. But what I'm trying to say is if you can grow some of your own food, that leek and potato soup, as I have done many times in the past, I've made it for zero money, apart from the cost of running the hob for, that was probably about 20 minutes, about 6-7 minutes sauteing, about 13 minutes on that rolling simmer, then turned off the power because the lid's on cast iron pans. What I'm trying to say is, if you're in a really, really, really tight fix and you've got a garden, you can actually eat for nothing, almost. And like I say, with beans, chuck a handful of beans in, also grown in the garden for your protein. But even if you don't have a garden, let's just remind ourselves of that. 42 pence, and you've had complete, oh, the freezer's kicking in, that's telling me to wrap up. You've had complete control over what's gone into your food at that price. So yeah, you know, if you're you know, timing and all that kind of stuff, I know it's always a jiggle in life, isn't it? But if you know, if you can just get it into your head to say, I don't mean get it into your head, I mean say to yourself, right, I'm going to set aside half an hour on Saturday morning. I'm going to make up a big batch of soup, put 2 pots on the stove at the same time, double chop, 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 chop. Do a double batch on Saturday, and say to yourself, well, at least having done that, that's half an hour of my time. Call it an hour. By the time you've done all the chopping, the cooking, the blending, the washing up, the whole picture, call it an hour. That's all your lunches for a week done for pennies. So worth it, so worth it. Tastes great. Right, I'm going to leave you all now because I want to get back to this. It's so good. And like I say, it's cooling down now. And like I say, if you like chunks in your veg, don't blend it quite, just blend half of it. I didn't blend it too hard, so I am getting little bits of little bits of potato in there. Ooh, they're soft and poppy and oh, gorgeous. Right, I'm going. I want to scoff. I need to put my nose in the trough. I hope that's been useful, inspiring, or whatever to folk. But yeah, let's do our own cooking and let's try and bring our budgets, our shopping budgets down a bit. Until the next one, please look after yourselves and have fun in your kitchen. Have fun doing it for yourself and getting a kick out of that. I know cooking can feel like a chore. I know firsthand it can feel like a chore. But to make it feel like slightly less of a chore, just think about the money you're saving. Yay, love that. For now though, cheerio lovelies.